Major funding for these broadcasts is made possible by grants from Chase Commercial Term Lending and New York Community Bank, M&T Bank, Perfect Building Maintenance, Capital One Bank, the Wyckoff Group, Greenberg Traurig. Additional funding is provided by grants from AKA Hotels, Corman Communities, Aerial Property Advisors, AVR Realty Company, Bank of America Merrill Lynch, Bank Leumi USA, Briarwood Organization, CBRE, Citizens Bank, Colliers International NYC, CPEX Real Estate Services, Cushman & Wakefield, Customers Bank, DDG, Dime Savings Bank of Williamsburg, Douglaston Development Levine Builders, Fisher Brothers, First Nationwide Title Agency, Flushing Bank, Foley & Lardner, Friedman LLP, Handler Real Estate Organization, HAP Investment Developers, Herrick Feinstein, Investors Bank, James D. Kuhn Real Estate Institute at Syracuse University, James Orphanides, Chairman USRealty.com, John Katsimides, Red Apple Group, Kilroy Architectural Windows, New York's Window Company, Madison Realty Capital, Massey Knuckle Realty Services, Matone Group, Mercantile Commerce Bank, Meridian Capital Group, Newmark Grubb Knight Frank, New Banks, MHP Real Estate Services, People's United Bank, SJP Properties, Sterling National Bank, Sterling Risk, Stonehenge Partners, TD Bank, Terra CRG, The Continuum Company, CUNY TV Foundation, the Moynihan Group, Urban American, and These Friends.
So it's called the Garden State. I don't know why it's still called the Garden State. I don't know if they make that many vegetables over there, but it's called the Garden State, and it's it's a market. That they have the Jet Giants Stadium. They have other things, but it's a big market to New York City. It's a market where there's a lot of residential development taking place. Today, I've brought together a group of leaders to provide their insight on what's happening in the residential market in the state of New Jersey. My guests today include my dear friend, Alan Goldman, who's the president of SJP Residential, Frank Giantomasi, who's the senior partner at Wolff and Samson, Adam Altman, who's a founding partner and managing member of the KABR group. And you can't have a show about lending, about residential, unless you have the money. So I have Brad Dubeck, who is the senior vice president, market leader for the New York and New Jersey market with Bank of America Merrill Lynch. So Alan, I'm just going to say, since you're older than me, since you've been involved with the residential market, how did you go to a neighborhood that laid festered for 45 years called Fort Lee? And this is your second involvement with Fort Lee. You went there 16 years ago. It's a great market. It's a beautiful building, but nobody was doing anything in Fort Lee.
Well, that presented the real opportunity. Here was a 16-acre site immediately adjacent to the George Washington Bridge. I'd fallow for 45 years. Hard to imagine, but countless number of developers and opportunists try to take advantage of it. But they didn't either have the vision or the staying power or the financial ability to make it happen. SJP viewed this as a site that had just an enormous opportunity, and we came together with a new mayor who also had a vision of re-energizing Fort Lee, which had lost some of its luster over the many decades.
I mean, for certain people, Fort Lee, probably in the 60s and the 70s, they had built more luxury apartment houses because of the wonderful view on the water. And then all of a sudden, nothing happened until probably 1998 when you built the Palisades.
That's correct.
And it's right next to the bridge. It's convenient to the Port Authority bus, which we'll talk about over there. It's Edgewater. There's markets, but Fort Lee, nothing had happened.
Well, we viewed Bergen County, and that's our market, as a principal market, as an underserved market for a luxury rental product. And we all know after the crisis of '08 and '09, there's certainly been a migration of people who recognize rental doesn't make them a second-class citizen. It gives them actually flexibility, liquidity, mobility. They change jobs. They don't have to worry about selling. And if you can deliver a product that equals, if not better, some of the condominiums in any part of the Northeast, you're going to have a reception that will be very positive. And that indeed is what we have. We built a 47-story tower, the first of two, containing 450 apartments, very high-end, 75,000 feet of amenities, and the kind of services that have not really been ever offered in northern New Jersey. So this building certainly is the best in New Jersey and rivals some of the best in New York at half the price.
So now we go to the other part of the state, and the kid who grew up in Bergen County, who knows that neighborhood, you're in, as many people would say to me, the sixth borough, okay? You've broken ground on one property, and then you're closing on another property this week. So let's talk about the Jersey City market, which is, there's more construction. I was there a couple of weeks ago. I couldn't believe the amount of construction.
Yeah, Jersey City is a market that's really coming into its own in a very significant way. And by the way, we are pleased to be bookended on what's termed the Gold Coast by Alan and SJP's project, which really is a gorgeous project that will change that area pretty dramatically. But going back to Jersey City for a second, what you have in Jersey City is a confluence of events that is enabling responsible and smart development. You have an administration who wants to create who wants to make it not just another borough of Manhattan, but really make it its own place, give it its own environment, and make it a great city throughout the country. So you have things like Mono Contemporary, the Lowe's Theater, and all these cultural things colliding that enable the cool coffee shops and all those things to happen. So now when you build there, you're building to people who want to actually be there. They don't want to be in New York and they're settling to be in Jersey City. They want to be in Jersey City and do things in Jersey City.
Now, Jersey City, you know, it's interesting because how many miles apart is Jersey City from Fort Lee? Maybe.
Probably no more than 10 miles,
10
if that.
10 miles,
If
but
that.
you know, we have different entrances to the city of New York over there. Okay, one is the Holland Tunnel and the path. You have the George Washington Bridge, and you also have the ferry. What are the rents going to be in Jersey City? What are rents today for a luxury residential rental in Jersey City?
Mid to high 40s.
Mid to high 40s. Rents in Fort Lee in a similar range?
Similar.
For your luxury. Now, here's the banker over here who has New York and New Jersey. What are the rents today that when you're seeing properties in New York City, what are they pro-forming that they're telling you?
So at the high end of the New York market for new construction, you're $80 to $90 a foot and higher in some locations. So it makes some of the new build close to mass transit options in New Jersey very, very attractive on a cost basis.
So how is a bank, how are you looking at new developments in New Jersey today as a lender?
As a lender, we look at new development opportunities for residential the same regardless of the market. So you look at the supply and demand characteristics, the nature of the demographics of who's going to ultimately use the units, and first and foremost the sponsor that's behind the development and their ability to execute.
But here's the next question, then I'm going to go to Frank. How do you make a determination? Jersey City has come of age. This is my 14th season, and I still remember doing a radio show, and I had George Vallone from Hoboken Brownstone. I had the Barrys. This is on radio 13 years ago, and we were talking about Jersey City, and I had Lefrak, and they were saying, there were no schools at that time. It was a different market. It was a totally different market. How do you look at which cities do you feel comfortable? Because we were talking before the show that people are comfortable with Harrison. They may be comfortable with Bayonne, while they're not that comfortable with Newark.
Mm-hmm. Well, there's some, I think, gut that goes into the decision of where you want to be as a lender, same as a developer. But the we also follow the trends. So if you look at the populations along the Gold Coast in New Jersey or in Brooklyn or Long Island City, the trend has certainly been younger, more affluent, highly educated renters, and that's where, equity capital's gone, and as a result, that's where debt capital's going.
Right. Frank, New Jersey born, New Jersey bred, Newark born, Ironbound section born. So how do you see the entire state of New Jersey, or let's say the metropolitan, contiguous to the metropolitan area, with regard to the residential rental world?
It's all a bubble that grows from the epicenter, which is Manhattan. Manhattan continues to be on fire. Numbers in Manhattan never seem to have a ceiling. I think that reflects in what happens in Jersey City. It finished Hoboken to the extent that, Hoboken is now the destination that you spoke about before. It's on its own. There's a big new product called Harrison. It's one stop before Newark. I think it's taking the residential that would have heretofore gone after Jersey City to Newark. I think it's an intersection. They've created a city there. The mayor, who unfortunately passed away, had great vision. They've built burger places and restaurants and entertainment, nightlife in addition to the Red Bull Stadium. Newark is a challenge, but it's a challenge that's time has come, because what we're seeing, Mike, is that we're seeing a lot of the profit takers from Brooklyn who have now money in their pocket and can't find reinvestment opportunity. They're coming to Newark. The numbers at Newark are low. The rental is not in the 40s. The rentals are at the 20s.
Let's look at it this way. People need to, they have to have an affordability level, and there are jobs paying a certain dollar level. So the opportunity to rent at $25 a square foot, in Newark compared to 45 in, Fort Lee or, Jersey City, that's a big difference.
That's the hook. You've hit it. We expand out because you can't afford Manhattan, you can't afford Hoboken, you can't afford Jersey City, you can't get up to Fort Lee. So where do you go next? Well, Harrison has become an alternative, and Newark is now a better buy than Harrison. So we're seeing people looking at Newark not for the Panasonics or the Prudentials or the Arenas or the Packs, but we're seeing developers now coming to Newark saying, we want to build, and we want to build Center City. Alan pointed out earlier that people want to live Center City. There's an urbanization mentality. People want to be there. Newark was never designed for Center City living. Now we're seeing it development. Mark Burson, who I talked about before, has just finished renting out, I think he's at 82 apartments right on Market Street, where there never was any residential whatsoever. So there's an opportunity. I think there's some smart people that are addressing it. Rutgers, the state university, which has been under dormitoried in Newark for years, as I mentioned before, is now embarking. 15 Washington Place, our friend Chris Palladino and Devco, they're doing a $77 million graduate dorm. Apartments, not really going to be, the transient dorms. These are people with discretionary income. Prudential will bring 3,000 employees. Cablevision, 700 employees. There has to be some spillage from those jobs, people with income that are going to say, I want to live closer to work. And that's the hope, and that's the dream.
I think in the metropolitan area, anything that, as we would call, transit-oriented development is doing well. And I think as a banker, you look at that in many cases. Now, what Alan, even though, Fort Lee is so close to the city, you've taken advantage and utilized your foresight now in saying, people, you could take the ferry, because there is you're putting in a shuttle.
We, to address those who wanted to take advantage of mass transit, and there are many who actually, because of the rent differential, want to take advantage of the lower rents in New Jersey versus New York, say, how do I get to New York? Well, we've created a courtesy shuttle, goes directly across the bridge to the express subway station, and in less than 15 minutes they're in Midtown Manhattan for the cost of one fare on the New York City subway. It is a way of addressing what people want, which is that ability to have easy access. And we run that 7 days a week. So on the weekends, if people just want to go for entertainment purposes and the like, they could take advantage of it. And we still have to recognize that many people in our country still use their automobiles as well. So we have a large garage, so people who go over the bridge to work in White Plains or even in Stamford or in Manhattan, because we all see the traffic, people do drive. So we've addressed virtually every means by which people either to go to work, to entertainment, to school, or the like, can take advantage of it. You know, we recognize 400,000 vehicles a day pass over the George Washington Bridge. Great many people.
Now here's a question. You have a large portfolio of office buildings. Now, there are, you know, the Mac Calleys of the world, specifically in New Jersey and in Westchester, and you have clients like this, have sat there and they've had these office buildings which are no longer, in a way they're obsolete, because the tendencies, the operation of a office tenant has changed. The amount of space that they want, the flexibility, the electrical and all. So there are people who are taking properties and converting them to residential. Do you see that taking place in New Jersey and other markets?
Yeah. One of the buildings that we've recently purchased in Journal Square, Jersey City, 30 Journal Square, was an office building for many, many years. And we are re-envisioning that property now, and we're in the process of doing that. But that will have a residential component. Even now, when we look at large office campuses, and we recently looked at one in northeast Bergen County that had many excess acres, we said, okay, the office building, maybe that'll remain office, but all this other land, the town might now be more amenable to allowing us to build multifamily rental or for sale housing, because if that...
Okay, but that's taking what that's knocking the building down and building on that. What I'm saying is, and I think Matt Calley or someone else is doing it up in Westchester, they're taking the office building and converting the office. Lefrak did that in Queens.
Right now you have it
building.
in Newark. Yeah. You're going to have the original New Jersey Bell building, an Art Deco classic, has been put out for RFP by Verizon, and it was put out for RFP for residential conversion. So right now it's completely occupied with office workers. It's the contracts are being executed, the developers being selected, and that will be example of what you're talking about. It will be a complete flip from an underutilized office building to a residential complex.
How do you look at that type of, as a banker?
You know, the same way we'd look at a ground up, construction transaction. Lower Manhattan has been a great example of a lot of the office inventory over the last few years being converted to residential. To the extent sponsors have those opportunities in Jersey, we would view it, I think bankers in general would view it as the same sort of analysis as a new build.
You bring up Lower Manhattan, which is a very interesting point. 20 years ago, a lot of Lower Manhattan was converted to office buildings for a specific reason, because Mayor Giuliani created something called the 421G, which was a 20-year tax abatement, total tax abatement, where you took an office building and made it in residential. With regard to developers, in order to get tenants, your real estate taxes have to be a certain level. Are you getting benefits from the municipalities today in Fort Lee, in Jersey City, in other markets for development? Because development creates jobs, it helps fuel the economy. Alan?
Well, I certainly see Jersey City was wise enough 15, 20 years ago to institute pilot programs to help energize a development program that was extremely successful. I'm not certain other municipalities see it in a way where it's a long-term investment.
Do you have a pilot program or a tax abatement program in Fort Lee?
No, I do not.
One of the things that's interesting is I was just speaking with some colleagues prior to coming here, and there's a lot of uncertainty in New York right now about the 80-20 program, the 421A moving to the side. How much affordable will you really have to put into a building? And what that's done as opposed to creating additional rental housing, it's actually caught a lot of the development community in New York like a deer in the headlights, where they don't really know when they're underwriting a property what they're going to be able to build or do. In Jersey City, on the other hand, there's a very clear set of guidelines of if you're in certain zones that are deemed significant for the economic evolution of the city. It's all very clear cut what those tax incentives will look like. And that's made it actually much simpler for the developer to go in there, underwrite a property, and create rental housing.
What about in the Garden State? Are we seeing much condominiums? Are we seeing much development in it, Frank?
We're starting to see a bit of a resurgence because the tipping point is been reached, I think, where the cost of rental is now equal again to the cost of home ownership. And when that happens, I believe you see them move over. I also think I heard just this week about a new initiative that's coming out of Washington that's going to authorize Freddie Mac and Fannie to do a 3% down program for home ownership. Now that kind of
That scares me a lot.
That was kind of bad talk a few years ago, but clearly there's some wise people that are saying if we don't incentivize what was the subprime market again, we've lost that market. And that program is coming out of Washington now, 3% down.
But I would say in New Jersey, the strength of the market is really urban rental. The more suburban areas, unless they're near train stations, have not been that robust in terms of rental. And I don't think the condominium market in New Jersey has that much strength. In New York, it almost was a necessity given what happened with taxes on rentals. And from a condominium standpoint, it was the only game in town, and it still is to this day.
Another area that was very large in New Jersey a number of years ago was the active adult communities, 55 and over. Have we been seeing them again enter the marketplace, Frank?
I haven't seen anything new, but what was on the boards has been built, and my understanding is that they've met with great success. But I don't see new active adult being planned. I haven't seen any applications.
We're
or anything
actually
like that.
building, we're going to break ground on one in West Caldwell shortly. Not a lot of units, over 55.
Rental or for sale?
It's going to be for rent, but we'll have the option of selling it down the road. We completed a job in Clifton, New Jersey that was for sale over 55, where we had bought the debt at the bottom of the market. And again, we had good success.
I have to be honest, I just bought a condominium for myself because I'm now just barely over 55. And we downsized, and I bought
So you
one.
went into an active adult
A
community?
brand new Hovnanian product, and called the Four Seasons. And they're all over the place.
Yeah, nice job.
And it was a complete sellout. 120 units, they're gone, right by West Caldwell, in North Caldwell. So that was something that's been on the boards for a long time. They finally saw the market pick up. They built it. We were at that stage of life, and it's been a great pleasure. So I think you'll meet with success in West Caldwell. That's a hot market.
Yeah, no, I hope so. And I also think, in terms of what you were asking earlier, condos, rent, there's been a generational shift also in terms of how my generation and younger looks at home ownership, right? There's not the same desire our parents and grandparents had to necessarily own a home.
As someone said on a show a couple weeks ago, the white picket fences are not there anymore.
Right. There's more of a desire to be mobile. There's more of a desire to have certain amenities, to be able to move around. It's not the baby boom generation coming after World War II where they want to settle, have 2.5 kids, and
Who are the renters in Fort Lee, and who are the renters by age? Okay, and jobs where they work in Fort Lee and versus Jersey City?
Well, interestingly, because Alan, I think, built a job that is so amenitized and modern and beautiful, I would think the profile of our renters would probably actually be somewhat similar.
I think the vast majority are in their 30s, whereas I think Jersey City would probably be in their 20s.
Right, skews to the mid-20s as well.
Right.
On the higher end stuff will skew into the 30s, but both on the younger side of the demographic.
Are we seeing more transit-oriented developments, around the state, and I'm not talking about Newark, Jersey City. I'm talking about some of the suburbans.
It's very coincidental. On the way here in the car, he called me this morning, the mayor of Morristown, told me they've got a whole new spate of work that they need to incentivize from the government perspective. Asked me if I'd have lunch or dinner with him to talk about what's happening. So I think that hasn't stopped, but it's driven by that train station. You're correct. It's that train station and that direct shot into Manhattan that's giving you that suburban, but it's an urban design.
You've been developing in Jersey for many years. So have you done the transit-oriented, or do you think it's still a great opportunity?
Oh, there's no question. It's a great opportunity, and I'm not the only one who thinks that. So there are many developers who are certainly just combing through any potential area that gives relatively easy direct access into the job centers. And where are the job centers?
Are we seeing foreign investors coming into New Jersey?
Well, China Construction has a 900-unit project that we're involved in right now that is really exploding down on the south end of Jersey City. But I'm not seeing, any other type of foreign investors come in.
You see any?
I haven't seen any in a large scale way
I
either.
haven't seen it.
I think a lot of foreign investment. We did do an EB-5 program as part of our Trump financing, but if you talk about individual foreign investors wanting to invest,
that, or even a fund or something like that, I haven't seen. At one time, it was a difficult question of seeing a foreign investor go into Long Island City, but the Canadians went into Long Island City a couple of years ago. I don't think Jersey has really seen the foreign investors to that level.
I think the EB-5 has been a fizzle.
I wish I had time to talk about EB-5. we did one. It's a very important thing, and it aired a couple weeks ago because it is a means of doing that. But 30 minutes, it takes a lot of time to bring up the state of New Jersey, and I'd like to say I hope to have all of you back later on in the season to discuss it. I'd like to thank Alan Goldman, Frank Giantomasi, Adam Altman, and Brad Dubeck, and I'll see you next week.